I got a call last night. Hey, I got a bunch of warning lights on in my car. And I'm like, okay, can you send me a picture? I'm not in a place to send a picture. I just remembered. I'm already up in my office. I'm already up working. Can you handle it? So this morning we were seeing the infinite warning lights of a Ferrari F8. And
Oof.
that thing will be on a flatbed headed to Ferrari to get looked at. But yeah, I mean, it was like a Christmas tree out of the blue, never shown a sign of issue. And a lot of times, we'll get it there and it'll be like, oh, something minor, So let's keep our fingers crossed that that's where we're at.
Hopefully, right? And we have our show to run through today, obviously. But since you brought up Ferrari, I saw a clip, and funny enough, again, serendipitously, I'm gonna bring this creator up later on in the show. But he was doing one of those sales call kind of videos where people call in about wanting to sell or trade a car to their dealership and so on and so forth. And the guy was $200,000 in negative equity on an SF90.
Oh, buddy, that is normal. That
I
is
had a heart attack watching this
that
video.
that's a real normal thing. Yeah,
What
look, I mean, we've
happened?
talked about SF90 here. I mean, it didn't resonate, and that's what companies like Ferrari rely on, that somebody gets in the car and they don't go, I hate this thing. I mean, as simple as that sounds, they have to be in that world, right? You can't get in those cars and hate them, because those people just get rid of them, right? They're just like, I'm not going to keep I don't like this thing, right? And they're a lot of times buying those cars to stay in the good graces of their Ferrari dealership and Ferrari as a whole, to get the next big car coming out. And so look, that part of system for Ferrari is what it is. And again, we have to say this all the time when we're talking about these cars. Many people that buy those cars don't care that they're losing that money. I'm not saying
You're
every
right.
one of them, but I'm saying a lot of them they don't even talk about it. They're just like, I don't like this car, get rid of it. And we've gotten rid of, I want to say 3 now for customers, and there was bloodbath. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, they lost a lot of money.
Well, in this case, this individual was concerned with what they had lost because they had picked it up, and this is going to also lead into another topic in today's show. But let's just say that they had a store or some sort of e-commerce business or just something online where they were generating upwards of 30 to 40K a month in money. They jumped into this high car, maybe because it raised their status or whatever the case may be, and then he dropped down to making like 10K, 12K a month. The dude is paying thousands of dollars a month. I think
Oh
10K
yeah.
alone for the note on that car. Bought
Yeah.
it for like 772. This guy's
Oh yeah.
up shit creek without a paddle.
Yeah, I mean, if he bought it for 772, it's not unheard of for him to get an offer for 350. I mean, it's not that's not unheard of. I mean, it's the bottom dropped out of that stuff very quickly. And this has happened historically with brands like, at times Lambo, at times McLaren, at times, Ferrari. There's just cars that don't hit. And if you have one of those cars that doesn't hit and you're in this situation, yeah, man, that's why, owning quote unquote supercars or hypercars or exotic cars or whatever, there is an inherent risk that basically for the last 4 years we haven't felt. But the previous 50 years of them, or 20 years, or 30 years, we felt that all the time. I mean, I made the McLaren joke. I mean, I know people that paid 270, hit the start button, and it was worth 135. I mean, there's just times and periods in cars where that's the reality. And SF90 is in that reality.
Well, speaking of things that have the bottom falling out of them, car giveaways, Nick. All right, car giveaways. Now, we don't really have a lot of details on specific creators or even channels, and there's only alleged stuff out there. So we're not going to name any names. I'm not going to name any names because I don't know 100%. I'm sure we'll find out more as 2025 kind of unfolds. But in recent months, I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube from pretty moderately big YouTube channels covering the conversation and the whole topic of YouTube slash social media car giveaway scams. So we're not going to name names, or we're not going to name names, as they say, but we
Yeah.
are going to talk about the topic at large because I want to get your input on car giveaways because we have pretty similar thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you have to start out with is, and you have background in some of this stuff, where there's what, one or two legal companies
Mhm.
that basically run the car giveaways, if you want to run them like completely above board. Like they
Right.
basically have been doing it for years and years and years. You sign on with them, they run all your legalities, they run all the bonding and all that kind of stuff. That's really what you know of that part of the business, right?
Yeah, sweepstakes companies, that handle everything for you.
Yeah, or just like a law firm that's into that. That's what they do. Sort of like being a will and trust attorney. You're
Mhm.
just good at wills and trusts. There's
Right.
people that's what they do as a big part of their thing is they do giveaways and sweepstakes, and they make sure you are good to go in Canada and you're good to go in all the 50 states and all that kind of stuff. And I inherently don't have a problem with giveaways. I don't, participate in them. But I think there's one thing about giveaways that I've seen that the way that we kind of saw them come into the world is a car builder channel or somebody that was on Motor Trend TV or whatever would do a giveaway through social media. Hey, we're going to build this in our shop. You're going to be able to watch us build it on the TV show. Then we're going to give it away. To then it kind of switched to we bought this, Fox Silverado and we're going to give it away. And so that person didn't do anything to the truck, didn't do anything to the car, didn't do. So I think that switch has been interesting to watch because the way I kind of remember it, and I could be wrong on this, is it was channels or people that were doing work on the car and then running a giveaway on the car. And I was kind of I was very understanding of that model. I think this new model where I just bought a new car and I'm going to give it away on my channel and I don't really do anything to the car, I think that's a little strange, don't you?
Yeah, I don't think it really speaks to the enthusiast side of the YouTube consumer, but I think it does speak to the social media like junkies that just want to have something they can then flex on social media, maybe do some videos with, make some content around, maybe even make your whole identity about this car. We know people that do that, but you know,
Hey,
largely.
we've gotten some comments from those people.
We have 2 pages of just Hardo alerts, but we won't get there yet. But I just wanted to get your thoughts at large because one, there's a lot of the like I'll give you an example. Early on, and I don't remember what the first giveaway was that I saw, but there was a channel who started off, making content about we'll just say hot hatches, picked up a hot hatch, was doing a bunch of content around it, and then as the channel grew based around this car, I guess he had the idea like, hey, let's see if I can somehow raffle it away or give it away or not give it away, but you know what I mean, make some sort of exchange where I grow my loyalty and people get interested in what I'm doing, and then I think he ended up doing it, but he moved on to EVs, and I remember watching that kind of unfold, and then I guess he misunderstood or at least like he what's the word I'm looking for? He didn't take into account how much work it would take to actually get people interested in a giveaway, right? Like you got to have some sort of following to get people to buy a
Yes.
product. Like there has to be something, right? And the rules of like no purchase necessary has to apply as well. I just think the
Yep.
whole thing kind of fell apart, and then just kind of like let's try to brush it under the rug so we don't seem like a scammer like a lot of these people today.
Yeah, and look, you have let's say this out loud. I mean, you have lawsuits. I mean,
Yeah.
you have the Federal Trade
Federal charges.
Commission and the Consumer Protection Board, and you got people like coming into this space going, "Hey, this isn't all above board."
Yeah.
Now, that's not everybody. I don't want to paint with that broad a brush, but there's been a lot of big numbers thrown around where guys getting fined 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, for running, not, essentially an above board giveaway. And so I think we're just kind of saying this and putting our thoughts on it. It's like you got to be careful entering these giveaways, because you don't really know if they're above board. You don't know if anybody's actually getting the car. I've seen, some of those things come out in lawsuit paperwork that the car actually went to somebody connected to the channel, which is like a big no-no, and all this other stuff. And I like I said, I think the giveaway is really interesting when somebody's working on the car and you can watch their progression with building this car or doing, some type of light restoration to it or whatever. I think that stuff that would that's engaging to me, right? Like you're doing that for a reason. I think when I look at this stuff just blindly, I go, if they're not doing that,
Mhm.
then it's just to try to grab audience. And I don't think that stuff really resonates with me personally.
Yeah, a lot of these people are under the federal government's microscope for things like not paying taxes or just not doing things by the book, and you really do have to do that because they'll come after you to make an example out of you. So my question is, when are we planning our first one, Nick?
Hey, we've talked about this. I mean,
Yeah, we have.
I'll be up front with everybody. Like, I think when you guys see, some content that we do around the LX470 that I just got and things like that, you're going to see that I'm going to put a lot of elbow grease into this car. We're going to do some things to this vehicle that if I got to the end, I think I'm more of like, I would just like to go out to people and say, hey, who would like to own this? Here's the price to own it. I think that feels more like 2025 and not getting into the fray that we're seeing. But, again, it's like anything else. The giveaway thing made sense at one point in time. It was really cool. Then it gets overdone and you look around and you go, I don't know if I want to dive into that. Isn't that kind of like the natural progression of this? Like
For
it
sure.
started out cool, it started out unique, and then like you have hunting channels, you have everyone, you and I are in the jiu-jitsu world. We follow that very closely. People in the jiu-jitsu world are doing giveaways and I'm not banging on anybody for doing it, but I'm going, is this this is what we're doing? Like, what's jujitsu have to do with a truck giveaway?
I don't,
What's what?
dude. I don't know, but if you know Craig Jones and King Ryan, I had a little put in the Miata that was supposed to get wrapped, and the whole thing. It's a whole story. We could talk about it off the microphone, but that's a crazy like again, like they found a way to incorporate. It wasn't a new car, obviously. It was the old Miata or whatever, but yeah, man, there's something about I think just the opportunity to like win a car and maybe just be a part of this whole thing that I understand. Also, we're gonna probably do a giveaway, so that's how we're setting the stage for that now. So when we do it, you don't get mad that we did it. Okay, that's all we're
Hey,
saying.
hey, we got to talk about Miata. We got to give a shout out to our friend Marshall.
Okay,
I believe Marshall had to take a last minute trip for a family thing. I think he was sporting a convertible Miata as the rental car.
can we get a picture of this?
I think we have a picture of it, and
Yes.
there may have been a stalling somewhere while driving it. So we'll come back. Everybody, listen to this. My business partner and our friend Marshall may have some Miata story that we'll be able to share on next week's pod.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Well, if you're new to the show, welcome to the number one automotive car culture related podcast on the planet, fastest growing since December 2nd of 2024. Facts. It's just facts. It is what it is. We talk car news, trends, market predictions, and most importantly, offer you guys a good hang every Monday on the internet. I'm at RobGTV all over the internet. Nick is at HyperClean Nick, and of course at HyperClean Store. And for today, man, we obviously talk about the car giveaways, and that's going to be an evolving, I think, segment or bit kind of for the show because we're going to find out what happens to some of these people this year. Like they're just not going to get out, whether it's a fine or actual time, whatever. We're going to find out they're not just going to get away scot free, and it's something's going to
Well,
happen.
hey, once the feds got you, man, they're going to get their piece of flesh. There's no
Yes,
doubt.
for sure. Just like Diddy does. Um,
No Diddy.
no Diddy. Every comment of every advertisement on social is just like, "Nice try, Diddy. Nice try, Diddy."
Hey,
I'm
people
like,
are
this is
wearing
so
it out.
weird.
They're
Yeah,
wearing it
this is
out now.
crazy.
Like I said, starts out good, then goes to a dark place.
Always. All right, we went viral and viral-ish again this past week. Do you know which one or which two I'm referring to?
Hey, you're gonna have to let me know because we talk throughout the week. We do try to engage. You do a great job engaging with everybody. I do not do such a great job, and so I'm gonna have to relinquish to you on this to tell everybody.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and just pull up the video and show everybody, and we're gonna do a better job for those of you that love watching on YouTube, whether you have it on your desktop or a tablet or phone. Like one of my favorite pastimes is putting up my iPad wherever I'm at. If I'm eating or if I'm doing something around the house, have my iPad and just kind of prop it up everywhere I go, and then watch one of my favorite creators or videos on
Yeah, that's a good
YouTube.
idea.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like doing that. Now I've heard a lot of the over the what do you call it over the OTT over the top whatever the apps for like Apple TV to just like
Yeah,
watch these kind of things, whether it's
yeah,
reels, like people just have reels on their TV. That's the craziest part of the world we're living in. These videos, these shorts have become so synonymous with like everyday entertainment that you have it on big screen TVs just watching vertical video.
yeah. It's wild to me. I've tried to do that. I don't enjoy it.
No?
No, I don't. I can watch YouTube videos on my TV, the full YouTube,
Mhm.
but vertical videos, it's just like a little. It's not my thing.
It's too pedestrian.
Shut up. I just
Yeah,
don't like it.
I have a dude,
By the way,
funny.
and we found out you're not allowed to not like what other people like. That's like becoming a big theme of the videos we're posting.
Oh, for sure. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play this video for people so they can hear what we talked about.
What manufacturers told every consumer for years. If you bought a four cylinder,
it was cheap.
Yeah.
If you bought a 6-cylinder, it was more expensive than the 4-cylinder. And if you bought a V8, it was more expensive than both of them. And then if you bought a V10, then if you bought a V12, that's what they train the consumer on for 100 years, 75 years. Now they're telling you, don't worry about it. We put a turbocharger in this 4-cylinder. It's the same. Now, everyone can talk about power output, but they're the ones that taught us what they saw as better inside their manufacturing process for decades and decades and decades. As we sit here today, they're trying to get you to believe that you should pay $72,000 or $75,000 for a 4-cylinder that they've never really spent that much money on, that they haven't had that much development on, and just trust that the turbos are going to work.
Does it make it feel weird when you listen to yourself talk?
So it's so creepy. It is so weird.
Okay, if you're a part of the 250,000 that didn't interact or see this video on social media, it really did put people in an uproar because the summary of a lot of the interaction on that was that so apparently 4 cylinders are better than 8 cylinders. They've always been better, and they're also more reliable. Technology has gotten better. What are you talking about? Was the kind of the consensus?
Yeah, and I'll say this: we were talking specifically about the pricing of vehicles, right? We were
Context is
talking
lost so much when you say that.
about the pricing of vehicles. When you moved up in cylinder count, you paid more money.
Yeah.
They're trying to wipe that away in the pricing of vehicles now. The point stands. That's exactly what they did for generations and generations back to our fathers and grandfathers. This is what they did. Now, nobody's saying, and again, let's repeat this. We understand government regulations are driving a lot of this. The problem is when you talk to people that have driven a V8 of a vehicle and now they're being told to the next generations of 4-cylinder with a turbo or multiple turbos, what happens? They go, I don't like it as much, right? That's exactly now that's a consensus that we are seeing with people interacting with that content. They're like, yeah, I'm going to keep my dot dot dot, 2012, 2015, 2017. And it isn't just a bunch of knuckle draggers. They're like, I don't want to go in the future. It's like, no, man. That's just people are driving them. And funny enough, after we have talked so much about Land Cruiser, I saw like 3 of them drive by me last week. Okay, we took my family to this little outdoor mall here in Vegas. My kids are there. My 4-year-old's very much into cars. She talks about them a lot. Again, she's not an expert like many people on the internet are, but you can hear the difference in that engine than when it was a V8. And I understand it's a 250. It's not a 300. It's not a that. I got it. You really have I saw with some of your comments, I also saw with some things you and I talked about, guys, that was a pricing conversation. And the pricing conversation is 100% true because you and I have also talked about this other thing that's happened where Mercedes has got a 4-cylinder asking $100,000 for.
Oh my
Name
God,
me a
you read
time
my
in
mind.
history. What's
It's
that?
literally you read my mind. It's literally next on the list. I'm so glad you brought that because it lines up perfectly. But while you're talking, I pulled up Mr. Cammisa himself. We referred to him in 2 of those videos, and he commented on one of them and said, "Daw, thanks for the kind words, guys. Good point on the companies teaching us what's best. There are some great 4 cylinders in the world, and there are some great cars for which those are the right solution. This rattle can in that big truck at that price, wrong combo."
It's almost like that's what we said.
I mean,
And Jason
not trying to
Cammisa,
pat our
again,
backs.
you yeah, but you look at it, you go, guys, some of this stuff has got to be common sense. Okay. A 4-cylinder in a Corolla, fantastic. Great gas mileage, super dependable. Also, what's the car weigh? What's the car trying to do? What's the car historically been developed to do? Great gas mileage, very dependable. Nobody's ever said a 4-cylinder isn't dependable. What we've said is putting a 4-cylinder in a large vehicle and turbocharging it, that's not figured out yet. It's okay, it's not figured out. Do I think the very intelligent people at companies like Toyota and Mercedes, they're going to figure it out? Yes. I have no doubt that we've seen those companies figure things out. Is it figured out January 17th of 2025, I think that's up for some debate. I don't think that that is a crazy statement to make.
Yeah, and what I find too with a lot of these people on the internet, and again, I say everything with love, but we got to roast you because in my mind, it's roast worthy. When I think of people like in entertainment, whether it's comedy or anything, right? Anything that requires or it makes you put out content or be a writer for something or a producer or whatever. I think of these theater dorks, right, in school and like growing up that like they didn't have a lot of power, they didn't have a lot of friends, but they became somebody in some field, and now they have kind of like this mass, effect on culture. The people in the car world, these other dorks in the car world that all of a sudden got in the cars because of EVs or the environment or whatever, are the ones that are coming in the comments for the most part and telling you why. I don't know. It was the other one on the Land Cruiser of why EVs are the best car in the world, better than any ICE engine. Those kind of dorks, like you're not making any friends now that you're older, talking like that, especially to people who like cars because we both like the idea of a cool EV. But at the same
Yes.
time, you can't be talking crazy like that and not expect to get roasted.
And by the way, that's what happened in the comments, not by us, but by other
Yeah.
people. And what has happened around the EV conversation is like a superiority complex.
Yeah.
Well, if I drive an EV, I'm better than the guy that drives a gas engine. And again, we have it the other way too, where people say, I'm never gonna. It's like, guys, EVs are a thing. They're going to be a thing. Gas engines are a thing. They're going to be a thing. Let's talk about them when it's right to talk about them, not go, I'll never drive an EV. Go drive one. Pretty enjoyable, pretty fun. Okay. Doesn't mean you got to buy one. Nobody's telling you what to do with your money. You and I are big on, and you'll see a lot of people that ask me my advice. I'm like, do you like the car? Yeah, I love the car. Then buy the freaking thing. Who cares what I think? Who cares what your neighbor thinks? Who cares what your family thinks? I live my life of I buy the cars I want to buy. So I'm all for people driving a Tesla, a Land Cruiser 4 cylinder, drive whatever you want. But if somebody doesn't have your exact opinion, that doesn't mean they're an idiot. That it just doesn't mean that. It just goes, they don't like what you like. I think that's the biggest issue here is that everybody wants you to share their exact opinion, right? And then they don't hear your opinion that we were talking about price. Okay. The pricing of vehicles, just like Cammisa comes in there and says, you guys are making all the sense in the world. Here's a guy that lives his life nothing but the car world. I mean, you can see what he does in his personal time away from the camera, that all he does is fool around with cars, drive cars, work on cars. I'm going to take his opinion that, hey, we're on to something and we're exactly right on the pricing of vehicles. That does not mean in 2028, Toyota's not going to figure this 4 cylinder turbocharged thing out. I'm sure they're going to do it. Okay. But we are in 2025 and we are watching those companies, Toyota, you name the company, charge exorbitant amount of monies for technologies that are not figured out to the level of their last platforms, yet they're asking me more money for a completely different platform that they don't have figured out yet.
Yeah, and as one of the great modern day philosophers said, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Okay. Whether I'm going 15 seconds in that quarter mile or 3 or 9 or whatever, like I like the driving experience of all those different cars. And I think the
Yes,
more that you can get on that boat, like the more you're going to enjoy this whole car world. Because one of my favorite clips was recently where you said, all of this is a bad decision. It's all a bad decision.
it's
And as
all a
I
bad
was
decision.
driving, right? Like whether it's financial or whether it's for fun or whatever. I got toys. I can only have one car. It's all a bad decision because most of us have to have a car. Although there was one guy that said, I'm aiming for the day where I don't need a car at all. And what he was saying is he wants to move to New York and only rely on the train and the subway. I said, sir, you are insane, but you go for it.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing. I have a buddy. I went to college in Ohio. I went to Ohio State. He was from New York City, did 4 years at Ohio State, never got his license, now lives in New York City, still has never driven a car. Now you got to
Gotta
realize,
find a car.
I'm over the age of 40. This guy's never driven a car, doesn't care about them, whatever. And you guess what? He would make fun of you and I because he's like, look at all the money you're spending. I just walk here. I just take the subway. It costs me, $50 a month to get around everywhere I want to go. Okay, man, he's still my friend. He does. You don't you don't have to be a car guy to be my friend. I still talk to him. You know what I mean? It's like do what you got to do, man. Interact with this transportation world, which is what we're talking about, however you want, dude. If you're into, somebody sent me like a 1982 Volkswagen that's on Bring a Trailer, And I'm going back and forth, our buddy Brian, I'm going back and forth, and I'm like, man, that remember those cars used to rattle your fillings? You know, it'd rattle, the car would rattle, and it's
Rattle your
like,
feelings.
I mean, but he's like, man, I think that thing's clean. I'm like, awesome. If that's your thing, man, that's your thing. That's what people don't realize. Just because somebody doesn't share your affinity for a car doesn't mean that I hate the car. I'm just making a statement about the car as I see it, or if I would want to own it. We got all this talk about the ZR1, and guys are like, Ferrari guys are crying now. I'm like, I'm not crying. Like
Wait.
I've owned Corvettes.
Corvette is next. First, sir, your friend grew up in Ohio and never enjoyed a Ford fucking Ranger?
Never,
Ah,
never.
one of the best cars ever.
This dude never drove anything. We would try to
That's
get him to drive.
crazy.
We'd be like, "Hey man, we'll go to a parking lot. You want to learn how to drive?" Never. Never in his life did he ever get
Graduated high
behind the wheel of a
school and
car.
everything together?
What's that?
Graduated high school together and the like
No,
the
no,
little
no.
fat.
He was from New York City, came into Ohio State for school,
Okay,
and
just college.
so his argument was always, I'm going to move back there. I don't
Mm,
need to learn. And we would do anything in our power to be like, hey, let's just go to a parking lot. You don't
yeah.
want to learn how to drive? It's like he was just, I don't need
Wow,
to. I don't need
dude.
to.
Hey, more power to you, man. That's how you
And
wanna
by the
live your
way,
life?
still one of the coolest guys to hang out with. He didn't have to share my opinion on cars to be a
Yeah,
cool
it's
dude. It was
debatable.
whatever.
Debatable. You don't like cars at all? I don't know if we can be friends. I'm gonna disagree with you right there wholeheartedly. What? RC cars maybe at the very least, like something. Hot Wheels, I got a table full of Hot Wheels over here for no reason. I'm a child. Did you see that guy that he sold like I think it was 4,500 or
that was
45,000
that
Hot
was
Wheels?
badass. That was
Dude,
badass.
so cool.
That
So
was
cool.
millions, right? He got millions for it?
I didn't see the final price. I just saw the crazy amount of Hot Wheels.
Or
That's
are you just
he
talking about, they were talking about it was worth millions? I thought that was pretty
oh,
cool.
super cool. Your buddy wouldn't appreciate that, which is why we can't be friends.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna text him right now and go, "Hey, Rob says I can't be friends with you anymore."
Unless you review the podcast right now, everybody listening should go review the podcast right now. Then we can stay friends.
Give us
Uh,
5 stars, or I'm not talking to you anymore.
please, I will for sure do that. I wholeheartedly. If you don't give us 5 stars and bring up our Spotify rating, especially because Nick really pissed somebody off on Spotify, please 5 stars. Give us a review. Which, by the way, we have 2 on there and 9 reviews on Apple. Please, let's get by next week. Let's get that to like 19 instead of just
That'd be great.
You talked about AMG. I was just reading this yesterday. Mercedes admits that it lost some customers after dropping the V8 in the C63. No way.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the Germans didn't know that people that pay $100,000 for a car are looking for an engine that they believe in. Like, what are we talking about here? And
I don't know the
again,
last name. Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
What's the AMG boss here? Check that this at the below the headline. Michael Shabibi, we'll call him, says his company should have explained the technology better to salespeople and customers. Bro, that's not why people didn't buy the car.
Yeah, you can explain whatever you want. That wasn't going to change what people thought about the car, right? I mean, imagine getting a wagon, AMG wagon, and them going, we dropped a 4 cylinder in it. I mean, those cars are going, I mean, 150,000 plus, $125,000 plus. They're not going to feel that way. And again, what they're scared to say out loud, and I said this, I think, in one of our first episodes that I was very, very poignant about. Guys, if the government is causing you to do things, why are you not saying that? We're doing this because of the governments around the world. They seem to just leave that out of the conversation,
Hmm.
right? We all know that that's the conversation. They seem very hesitant to talk about that part of it. I think we talked about this when it came to tech, that as you dive into the tech being added to vehicles, most of the tech is government mandated. And so if the tech that the government mandates is $20,000 worth of the car price, why don't you tell me that? You have no problem telling me when there's sales tax from the government on the sheet, but you have a severe problem telling me that the government is causing you to do all these things. I don't know why they're not being honest about that. Now, and again, I'm not even saying the word honesty in a way of like they're hiding it, but we all know why they're doing it. They seemingly just don't talk about it.
Now, you talked about, well, actually, this is actually a good time to bring up one of the hardos. And I didn't get this person's name just because I was super annoyed by him. I'll try to find the username because a lot of these people in my mind, they're looking for attention. So I want to give them the attention that they want, right? So
Yep.
I'll find the guy's name. But essentially, it was talking about the tech. And that was what we were talking about. Or I asked you your favorite, who's doing infotainment right? Right? You said,
Yep.
I think it was, what was it,
Tesla,
M7? Tesla,
Tesla
Volvo.
M7 and Volvo. Yeah.
Right. So they really did not like the fact that you were encouraging any more technology or screens inside of a car. So they said, so uninformed on infotainments and interiors. I guess I need to start a podcast so I can also talk crazy. Like,
Oh, crazy.
what?
We're just giving an opinion on what infotainments we like. And like I said, I mean that's Hardo of the week material right there. I mean
Yeah.
that's exactly what we mean. It's like, what are you talking about, man? I'm just telling you who I thought is doing it well because I'm in 8 billion cars a week. Like I just that's all I'm giving you. It's just like when I drive the new Land Cruiser, I'm giving you my thoughts on 500 plus miles in that Land Cruiser. Come to find out, everyone else who's around cars all the time, the Dougs, the Cammisas, pretty much mirror exactly what I was saying with my experience. And to get that riled up over infotainment, I got news for you, man. If you like infotainment in a car that I didn't mention, enjoy it. But I'm also the guy that bought a 2003 figuring out how to replace blown speakers. So the infotainment thing is not that important to me liking a car. If that's what it is for you, then go buy the one you like.
Well, you also here recently just mentioned you were talking Corvettes. Was it with Brian or somebody? You were talking about the new ZR1, right?
I was talking. No, I was talking. You and I were talking on here, and then we had some guys message in.
Okay, yeah, that was another one. That video went viral-ish, whereas the V8, the Land Cruiser video went pretty viral, and that was one of those again. And Corvette people are almost like Porsche people, where they're in their very own breed of people. And don't get me wrong, I love Corvettes. I look at C6s all the time. It's one of my favorite cars. Period.
And I've owned them personally.
And you've owned them personally, so you've got some really good experience with them. But yeah, I think for some reason, whether they didn't know, didn't read, or just refused to believe what GM has said about, maybe let's just call it the inspiration that they took from the 458 on the C8.
How about buying the 458 engine and having it there as part of their development?
Oh,
Again,
how about you
Google's
get a
our
book and read the history of Corvette, Nick?
yeah, Google's our friend, guys. Google's our friend. There's 8 billion. I made sure to go Google it afterwards when I saw some comments.
Yeah,
And I just wanted to, because the big thing in my household is when people ask me questions that could be Googled, I just say GTS.
ETS, bro.
Google that shit, right? Like that's my line to people. And again, nobody said. I think if you're building that car, a car you'd want to take inspiration from is a car that everyone loves called a Ferrari 458. Great driving experience. Some guys brought up 488, which again, I just talked at the beginning of the podcast about an F8 lighting up like a Christmas tree, same platform. It's a great platform. Those are great platforms to look at and go, hey, we've built nothing but front engine cars. Let's go look at some things that people have been building for generations and let's learn some things. Why is that a negative? It's not a negative. That's exactly what Ford should do, Chevy should do, Toyota should do, anybody should do if they're going away from a platform and going to a different platform that they really haven't built in their history. Why wouldn't you take inspiration for people in times when they were doing it in an excellent way? But it's like you don't think these car companies. I mean, the Ford CEO drove a Chinese EV around for 6 months. That's what he should do. He should understand what the hell's going on out there, shouldn't he? I mean, that's my opinion on it. And people just, no, they didn't. No, I mean, we had a guy who owns an automotive shop go, you better have some proof. It's like they admitted it. I mean,
I think every American should own a C5 or C6 Corvette for some period of time in their life, me included. I still want to buy again, and I said this last week. And you also need to have a 6 pack or a 12 pack of Hulk Hogan's beer in your passenger seat, and then just enjoy those bald eagles. Listen here, brother. Everybody needs a
and you
Corvette in
need
their
to be
garage,
you,
all
you
right?
need to be like, oh my God, is that Hogan's music? Like
Yeah.
to me, I'm in on C8. And then I love the people that are like, oh, that thing's a piece of crap. So we get to this conversation where cars like Corvette, you're either going to say you love them or I hate the design. Look, guys, design to me is a personal thing. There
Mhm.
are things I would do immediately to C8 Corvette that I think would refine the look of it. The back end sits up way too high. They need to lower the back end of that. That'd be the first thing that anybody looking at that car would say. That's not, some kind of crazy thing. But guess what, man? That's a good platform. Whether you like Corvette or not, if you can't admit that that is a good platform and they've done a good job with it, and the quality control seems to be in line, which I did not think was going to happen. Let's just be honest. I didn't think they were going to make this big change and they were going to keep the reliability and I thought they were going to go through a bunch of growing pains. Quite frankly, they didn't. So let's pat them on the back because that's what we should be rooting for. You made a change. The change was better than everyone thought it was going to be, including Corvette loyalists who bitched and moaned about them making the change. Then you get in that car, you're like, did a pretty good job. And I don't know why that's not a positive. To me, if you're a car guy, C8, you should be like, hey, let's pat them on the back. They did exactly what they needed to do. They made a change. It went really well. It's going really well. Now they're able to build the Z06, the ZR1 platforms off of that, and those are impressive. Whether you're going to buy it or not doesn't mean you can't pat somebody on the back. I think Corvette's done an awesome job.
Yeah, and don't you think they could have, just by what we've seen unfold over the last, 2, 3 years, you kind of tell yourself, like, they could have done this a lot sooner. Like, they really could have achieved these things a lot quicker.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, look, that Corvette has been one of those things that I think you and I can fairly admit they've been doing them really well for a very long time. And to make this big of a change and it to go this well, hey man, that's why GM sold so many so many vehicles. And I'll say this, GM saw sales spike in 2024. I mean, basically, up pretty massively, done a really good job. I think the halo of C8, it actually means something to that brand. I mean, because Ford doesn't get that off the Mustang. They don't get the halo effect off the Mustang that Chevy gets off the C8 Corvette, right? I mean, by all accounts, I believe Mustang is way down in sales in 2024, and C8 Corvette has created this halo effect that I think has really done that brand very, very well throughout.
Yeah, overall, I think Chevy took the number one spot, sales spot. I think it was barely by a little bit, but they overtook Ford on number one selling vehicles, right?
I think they overtook them on trucks.
Oh, that's
I,
what it was.
I,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
I think they
Silverado.
overtook them on truck. Like, look, man, you
Great
got to
truck.
applaud what Chevy has done, and I think that C8 going off without a hitch, pretty much, is that's what to me that's what a halo car does. So
Hmm.
you hear a lot about a brand having a halo car. You hear that more in the hypercar supercar world, but it can definitely happen. I think the halo type of stuff is like Forerunner for Toyota. That is kind of like their halo of that brand. I get it; it's not at their top level, everything, whatever. But I think as a brand, Forerunner buoys your belief in the Toyota brand. C8 halos Chevy's whole brand by just continuing to build a Corvette everybody wants to buy. And that's been generations now. Like you said, C5, C6, C7, now you're into C8. I don't remember a time where people are like, I don't want to buy these. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible.
Dude, Corvette Warehouse, again, shout out in Houston. They always have some of the best Corvettes for sale. Somebody actually, this leads me to a question that you were asked, and I saw it now that you answered it, but maybe here for the podcast, J.W.556. Let me see. He's the one that asked a question? Damn, is that not it? He just said he always wanted a C5 Z06 under 20K, but there was somebody that asked you on a particular car. Do you remember? It was this morning, I want to say.
Yeah, I
If
think
you
it
could buy
was
it.
somebody was looking at a C6 Z06 maybe.
Yeah,
Was it?
damn.
Or
I should have queued it
C7?
up. I thought I was so confident I had it queued up already. I was gonna pull it up, and I was like, "Nope,
Hey,
wrong one."
email rob at
That's not
clutchculturepodcast.com.
an email. That's not a real
Yeah.
email. All right. Oh, anyway, you know what? Here's one. Let me bring this up, and then we'll move on because not everybody's a Corvette person. One of the shops was like, this was on the cars are a bad buying decision. Well, whenever it starts with well or you should or whatever, it's like, oh, this is gonna be great. I've purchased, modified, and driven sold over 15 American performance cars since 2010. I've made at least 3K to 26K on each vehicle that I sold. Over 120K in 14 years. Now I don't have a dealership, but I do buy parts related to my aero performance parts side hustle.
Yeah, and there goes the point. You're in the car business. You're
Yeah.
in the car business, right? So this is the again, just because I didn't list off performance shops or all these different shops, the point is if you're in the business of cars and you're making money on cars, this conversation doesn't pertain to you, right? Because you should be finding a way to make money on cars if you're in the car business, or you're going to be out of business pretty quickly. The same goes for me. If I don't find a way to make money on cars, I'm not going to be in business very much or for very long, and certainly not last as long as I have. And again, kudos to you because there's a lot of people in the car business that get in the car business that don't figure out how to make money in the car business. I mean, that is at a 90% clip that most people who try to get in the car business don't get in them. You know, a bunch of shops in Houston that you could reference right now that have gone away, all across Texas, people that you know. I can list a million of them here in Vegas and other states that I know. The car business is not easy.
Yeah.
It's actually probably one of the hardest industries to make money in because you have to buy right, you have to sell right, you have very thin margins. I'm happy when a guy shares a story like that, but also missed the mark a little bit that we were kind of talking about guys like him.
Yeah. All right, moving on. There's some content creators that do content right, not just in cars, but in general, where you see it once, you like it, you might, well, we don't leave comments. Clearly, we've said that. You and I won't leave comments, but we'll like it, and we might
Yes.
even like comments that are left, and then the algorithm feeds us more of that. And I think we're kind of starting to find our feet with doing that with podcast clips about cars and these conversations we're having. But I want to, and again, we make the joke that we don't give any free shout outs here, but when it's good, I do want to highlight it. Do you know who Joe W. Auto is? This guy that always wears a suit and is always next to a really expensive car that he's selling.
Oh, I have seen his stuff.
Perfect. I'm going to pull something up because I want to make this somehow a segment or something that we dive into periodically. Because if we get crazy comments, I can only imagine what people that are selling this kind of a stuff get in the comment section. So let's see what Joe's talking about today with this beautiful AMG G63 4x4
Yeah,
square.
this guy's great.
4x4 squared. This one finished in night black magno, optioned out to 372,000. On the outside, the night black magno paint is a $4,000 option. This one also has the night package magno, which blacks out the front bull bar, fender flares, mirror caps, badges, and the rear bumper in night black magno. This one optioned with the red brake calipers, factory mud
That thing's
flaps,
sick.
carbon
Dude,
everywhere, including the fender flares, the side molding, the LED light bar housing, the
That
rear
light
roofs,
bar's got to go.
why didn't you even
cover.
notice it? I
This
like
one
it.
optioned with the professional package, so you get the roof rack, the rear ladder, and the spare tire cover. And on the inside, this one optioned with the classic red exclusive Napo leather, so diamond stitching
I
on the
like the red
doors,
guts.
the
Yep,
seats,
100%.
console, full Alcantara headliner, carbon fiber trim on the center
Look at that.
console, the dash, and the door panel, along with the carbon fiber steering wheel, the Burmester surround sound system, 4x4 squared on the grab handles in leather, and that diamond stitching goes onto the rear door along with the carbon fiber
Sick.
grab handle.
Hey, nothing like that door latch sound of a G Wagon.
As you were saying it, I said the same thing.
Yeah, that thing's sick.
Dude, okay,
That
let's see
thing's
real quick
sick.
before we discuss this car. First comment here. You have to be on some kind of drugs to pay 372K for a glorified Wrangler. Never saw the appeal of G63s. Let's see.
You know what
That's
the appeal is? They're badass. That's the appeal.
next one. 372 for a vehicle? Oh, that's crazy. I think, and Joe's in here replying to some of these too from time to time. The guy obviously is a busy
I tell
man.
you, the
So
thing that they should be most offended about is somebody buying a G63 doesn't need the ladder to get on the roof. I can tell you that much. They're not
shut your
taking that
dirty
thing
mouth.
camping.
That's cool. I don't care what you say. That's cool. I don't care
they're not.
what you say.
They're not taking that thing camping, dog. That thing is not going camp. Look, but this proves that it's like who pays that? The people that can pay it. That's
Makes you
who
reply
pays
to
it.
that one. Many people on drugs then. That's a great reply. That's a great reply. Because these things sell. Like I
Oh,
think a lot of
not only do they sell, I mean, they sell at a premium and they have sold at a premium long before the boom of COVID. They
Yep.
keep their value. They are probably one of the beaming lights of the luxury auto space if you really look at it. I mean, G63 is awesome. Sounds awesome, looks awesome, got that industrial vibe. Now, the one thing you would say is that you don't get a lot of modern amenities like, you know, they they have these, you know, this cup holder situation where they used to have these nets on the side, like, you know, by your feet. I get it, but you're buying it because of that.
Hmm.
You know, you're buying it because it's basically this totally industrial. Now they're taking it away on this one, by the way, the Alcantara and the carbon fiber. I understand all that, but you really strip a G wagon down, it's a great experience. And by the way, you don't get that experience anywhere else. That's why G wagon's special. Because name me a vehicle with that exact experience that you can go buy as a rival. That's an experience unlike anything else in that luxury space.
Agreed. And I'll give you one more here, or I should say, we'll give Joe here one more shout out because I think you have a lot of experience with this particular car, and I'd love your take on it here. The color is insane, and the specs insane. But what are your
We have
thoughts
a
on?
Lamborghini
Oh,
Urus, optioned out to almost $300,000, finished in a color many people love, blue Cepheus. On the outside, the paint is a $13,000 option, and a lot of the trim pieces are also finished in it. A lot of trim is also blacked out, including on the front grille, the hood, the mirror caps, the side trim, the rear
yeah.
lid, and diffuser. It's the 23-inch wheels finished in black, a $5,500 option. Also, the carbon ceramic brakes with the calipers painted in orange. On the inside, this one has an orange and black two-tone with
Hell yeah.
leather and Alcantara that
Those
goes
guys at
all
Audi
throughout.
did an excellent job.
Orange contrast stitching on the dash,
True.
the center console, and the seats.
Okay, now for a $13,385 paint job, it's very similar to nitrous blue on the Focus RS. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Hey, don't do that. Don't do that, Rob. Hey, we're not doing that. Hey, by the way,
What?
we probably spec'd I'm probably at like 50 to 60 Uruses. I mean, we've purchased more than that for customers, but we've probably fully spec like 50 of them. I tell you what, man, Lamborghini has basically buoyed its business and is able to do all these other cool things because of the success of Urus.
Hmm.
And for all the people who are purist of the Lambo brand, we're seeing this now with the Ferrari SUV. The purest days of those brands are over. The only thing we can hope is they take all this money that they're making off these SUVs, which, by the way, everybody told me that the Ferrari SUV wasn't going to sell. I think in Europe right now, there's like a 2.5 year wait to get
Wow.
yours. Okay. And what people have to remember is these are public, you know, Ferrari's publicly traded now. They're in the business of making money. And I can tell you that Urus kind of proves people want to buy those. And everybody's going to say, well, it's mostly an Audi. It's that badge and the things with the engine and that matters to that clientele. And we have not been able, we have had no complaints about Urus. This is really hard in my business. I have had not one customer that bought a Urus that hated it. Not one, which
Wow.
doesn't happen for any car that I purchase people. Okay. I purchase for people like none. Urus, people are like, great grocery getter. Love it. Drive it around town, drive it to work, drive it to soccer practice, whatever it is they do, that person that owns it, they love them. And it looks great on the road. I mean, again, for Lambo's first time building this type of vehicle, right? They hit it out of the park. It looks like a Lambo. It acts like a Lambo. It has an Audi interior. I get. I mean, you get in that thing, you're like, hey,
Such a
I've been
good
in an
combo.
Audi before. I
Such a
get
good
it.
combo.
Like we all get it. But that vehicle is one of those ones, sort of like we're saying about C8. Did you think Lambo was going to get it right the first time? Because I didn't. None of us
No.
did, and they absolutely got it right. And look, the things, and we are in the business of doing some pura sangue, you know, talks right now for some customers and some specking. They couldn't be more excited. So for all these people that are like, this isn't going to sell, no one's going to like it. I don't know what's going to happen once the Ferraris hit the road, but if it's anything like Urus, they're going to love them. And again, it's those customers that are paying the bill, not everyone else. And so if they love it, that's a success.
What's the cup holder situation in those?
What in the
In the Uruses?
Oh, it's just a normal middle console. It's all
Oh, it
right.
is? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's just a normal middle console. I mean, it's look, you get in that thing, you're like, wow, I've been in a lot of Audis. This
Sweet.
is, but
Yeah.
again, if you're Lambo, Audi's a good one to copy on the interior, right? I
Hell
mean,
yeah.
that's basically what they did. And again, I know that there's some accents that are Lambo specific. I got that part, but it's very comfortable. Uh, I say this, when you're in sport SUVs, one of the things you can complain about through all brands is the seats aren't comfortable as it is to like what you think about when you get in an SUV. You know, that pillowy, I'm sitting in, I mean, look, it's those are harder bottom seats and but dude, everyone loves them. And all my customers that got them, I haven't had one, I mean, even a tiny complaint. And the other thing we haven't had a bunch of reliability stuff. You know, we've had little stuff, little sensors here and there that happen with new cars. We have not had a major, knock on wood, we haven't had a major any of complaints, you know, my car's not starting. I mean, we just haven't gotten any of that. So for them to do it that well out of the box, again, like we're talking about C8, it's pretty incredible. And I'm going to cheer that on because I got to tell you, I drive them quite a bit. I love them. They're nice.
Yeah, no, I think they're pretty sweet. Of course, they have haters like everything, but I think that was done really well. A good collab, obviously, of interior, exterior. One SUV that literally last night I said to myself, you know what? This might be the first BMW I consider buying, and that was a X3M. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah. So one of the things with me, and BMW has done an awesome job in their X lineup. You know, X3 to me, I'm sort of X5M because when you get into an X3, I feel it's a little small. Okay, I just feel like
I'm a big dude who likes to feel cozy in my hot hat. You know what I'm saying?
it's one of those things like I just but there's no doubt they've done an unbelievable job with their X lineup. You know, people, you know how many X1s that I never thought they'd sell that vehicle. As a guy that's followed BMW his whole life, sold
Why?
a bunch of them, made a bunch of money on BMWs in my career. I'm here to tell you this, man. I never thought they'd sell a bunch of X1s. They sell a bunch of the X product from X1 to X7. They sell a ton of these things and good on them, right? But X3M, fast, fun, tight steering, everything you want out of BMW. I would just tell you that my favorite is X5M to me is kind of unbeatable in their lineup. But if it's like, hey, price wise, X3M fits for me, I don't think you'd hate that at all.
Yeah, man, 500 horsepower, that kind of
Dude,
performance,
it's
like,
they're nice. They're nice. But again, like I said, we're splitting hairs for what I would, you know, say, hey, can I just find my way into an X5M? That would make me a little happier personally, size wise. But X3M it's pretty damn nice.
so have you ever heard of a place called Earth Motors?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with anybody there? I had
No,
seen them.
I no, we did. I've only done we located a car there for one of my customers, but it was just paperwork, like DocuSign stuff. I didn't have any like personal involvement.
So since we're giving everybody shout outs today, there's a guy I follow, Moving Merch. His name's Alex. I believe it's Cortez. I'm not sure. I want to say it's a family owned business. It's either his dad, his uncle. I'm not sure. I don't know the whole backstory, but it's north of me in the Dallas area. I think it's Carlton is
Yeah, it's
exactly.
nice.
Yeah, it's a cool place. It's a cool area, and he's one of those people that I referred to at the top of the show that does content right. So I can tell he's obviously on the younger side. It's one of those things where dad, uncle, whoever, the
Hey,
family.
is this the McLaren they overpaid for?
This is what he is. What? Yep. You see that video?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. He's doing it right, man. He's kind of like JNS over there. I think it's in Jersey where George does those videos. Content creators that are capturing all those moments right. They're getting people excited. I can't wait to just when I'm having the time, whether I'm on the elliptical or I'm doing whatever, and I'm just waiting
Yeah.
for something to heat up in the microwave. I will look at the reels, and I always watch all their reels. They're doing social media right. So I just happened to be on Google Trends and I was looking at just different industries of what was trending, and they were number one earlier this week on just trending. I was like, oh, it's interesting. And I saw a couple of cars here recently that I happened to be looking on Car Gurus. Long story short, I go to their website and I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the stuff that they have up there right now. Because this one, I'm going to pull it up just so we start on it. In particular, blew me away, and I want to get your thoughts because I think you're going to hate it. All right.
Oh my God.
It is a 68 Charger SRT Hellcat Red Eye Exo Mod C68 Carbon Hennessy. I mean, I could keep going. This thing is insane. Look at this
Hey,
thing.
look at those wheels. So for everybody listening, It's like this burgundy color with these gold wheels.
Burgundy
And
carbon, sir.
yeah, it's wow. Does that say 440 grand?
$439,900.
Boy, you got to really, really be into SRT Hellcats, don't you?
Oh, okay. Let's give some of the this. Look at this list of the description of the car. All right, real quick for Nick and for listeners. All right, Earth Motor Car is excited to bring you this amazing '68 Charger Hellcat SRT Exomod Bespoke C68. I don't know why I say C68. Full carbon body. It's full transparent candy carbon body. Two
And
thousand
and
hours.
and so it's built on a 2022
Yes,
Dodge Hellcat Challenger. Yeah, Dodge Hellcat Challenger. Oh my God. Can you
it's got a
imagine the
Hennessy.
work that went into this thing?
2,000 plus hours, one of one build. Apparently, it was at SEMA. I'm surprised you didn't see that this past SEMA.
And look,
Um,
I may have seen it, but this wouldn't be something that would register. Like, I need to talk about it. Trust me.
I knew it. That's why I had to bring it up.
Trust me,
Dude, this is insane though, right?
man. And you have some history. You're around some of Hennessy's stuff. This has got to be one
Uh-huh.
of the more impressive things that Oh, look at that interior, man.
I like it.
That's a hell of a job,
Yeah, I like that interior a lot.
man. So for everybody listening, it's like a two tone, kind of like a camel brown with what looks to be
Caramellish
like what a
color.
darker brown insert on the
Yep.
seats.
With the matte
And
blue color.
look, one of the things I talk to customers about this, and this is obviously a different than a resto mod. Let's be clear. This is
Yeah.
way more intricate. Resto mods have a lot of appeal, man, because if you
Hmm.
look at the inside of this car, you got the 68 body on this thing, but you got all the modern amenities. You got the 2022 amenities. And when I talk to a lot of people that want to get into vintage cars, one of the things I tell them is we're going to drive a vintage car of the year or truck of the year that's not resto modded. And then I'm going to have you drive that year where you get to look like you're driving it, but you get, it's resto modded. I'd say 99 out of 100 people choose the resto mod,
Yeah.
because they want AC. They want, an upgraded gearbox. They want an upgraded engine. They want, whether it's, they don't want a full screen, but they want Bluetooth connectivity, on a vintage looking radio. I mean, you'd be amazed. And I think a lot of people that are purists are like you and I are. If I go out and I buy a 1980s Porsche, I don't want it resto modded. I don't want it upgraded. I'm buying it because I want that. That's how I am. But I can tell you, 99 out of 100 people, they want the resto mod. That's just from my experience dealing with thousands of customers trying to buy something vintage. They want it upgraded because you don't realize a lot of times how bad these cars are. Driving them after you've driven something modern, and they're like, "Yeah, I thought I would love this, but I don't. Can I get something else?" And they always go for a resto mod.
100%. I shouldn't bring stuff up in the middle of you talking just because I want to distract you. Because this is incredible. A 67 Mustang carbon fiber Shelby GT500 CR Coupe. Look at this.
Yeah, that thing's nice.
That's sick.
Yeah, and again, we're in the what $490,000
Oh,
range here. Hey, Rob's got
489,200.
real expensive taste on when he's looking for cars.
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to support local here. He's a Dallas fella. He's a Texas fella. Trying to
Yeah,
promote his business.
you'd be supporting him. There's no doubt
Yeah,
you'd be
right.
supporting him.
I'm supporting him and getting the message out there, right? His
Yeah,
videos are great. While I have the screen shared here, at Moving Merch, his videos are fantastic. Actually, I don't have that tab pulled up. It's okay. It's okay. But anyway, yeah, man, those are really cool cars. Actually, let's give the guy the credit real quick, just because he does a fantastic job. Most people have seen him at this point. He's even done some collabs with JNS videos on TikTok and Instagram.
yeah. No, he does a good job. That McLaren
Incredible
video kind
stories.
of kind of made me laugh because he's about the 8 billionth person that's overvalued a McLaren in the history of McLaren.
Oh yeah, that's right. So we don't have to watch the video, but what's up with this? Why are these cars so over? Like, I mean, they dip. People lose money on them all the time. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, look, McLaren, and especially in his position, you're going to have these times where my guess is he bought it sight unseen.
Mhm.
There were some things that he thought, he pulled something up real quick. This guy wanted to get a deal done. He probably put him in another car. He gave him a little bit more of a valuation. Look, he's not going to lose 30 grand on the car. He feels like he put, he's paid 30 grand over, but he'll find a way to put a trade in and finagle the numbers. But McLaren's one of those tough things, man. I mean, you got to be really on top of that market because there's times when they're really hot and there's times when they're not at all. And that has been the history of McLaren. You can go back. McLaren fought a real issue. Let's just use a number 10 in the last 10 to 15 years. They had a period of time where if you sold a McLaren, you know that that McLaren was coming back to your shop and within a week, right? They had that bad of reliability. McLaren's largely cleaned some of that up, not everything, but McLaren's just one of those car brands that, sort of like Aston Martin, where, you know that they're going to depreciate, and sometimes they depreciate a ton at the time, and sometimes they depreciate less. And so if he's not buying a ton of McLarens, he could have just bought it thinking, everything's hunky dory in the McLaren market, and it wasn't at that moment. I mean, it is a finicky market. The McLaren market, when it comes to, and again, I want people to understand, there's just moments.
Mhm.
Okay, it used to be all the time with McLaren. Now there's these moments where you go in different models that you can find yourself in trouble if you're buying a lot of those or a little bit of those cars.
All right, we've reached our hour. You got about 10 minutes for a little overtime?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I have 3 pages of notes. I'm trying to structure the show with a bunch of interesting things, and there's just so much to talk about. And you've got so much insight that we can't get into an hour. But when we get to this point, if there's some really cool things, I'll ask Nick if he's got some time for a little bit of overtime. There was a subject here that I had written down. I want your insight, and I think people would appreciate. We're talking about big YouTubers and influencers that over leverage their channels in order to find that growth that everybody seems to want to hit to get the millions of
Yeah.
subscribers and billions of dollars. What are your thoughts on that? Because we've heard some people that are already big themselves talking about other big creators or up and coming creators.
Yeah, look, it's for those that don't know, a lot of car creators that we all love, that I love, they they look at cars as money into their channel. They look at cars as things they can liquidate quickly through their channel if they need to get rid of it to pay bills or whatever. And there are some guys that are going to take risk. I mean, and inherently, if you look at it, it's sort of the dealership model, right? These guys are going to take big swings on stuff. You
Mhm.
you got Freddie with the P1. I believe that's fully financed. He financed that to bring it to his channel, which I think is super interesting. I mean, look, you never know somebody else's finances, but there's no doubt when you start talking about the type of revenue these guys are just bringing in from their YouTube channel, we're not counting sponsorships, we're not counting, events they're being flied to and paid to
Merchandise.
attend. You don't know if podcasts are paying them to come on their podcast. These guys have a ton of ways to make money, and actually, I think you and I would say this because a YouTuber just got a deal with Pennzoil.
Mhm.
I think that's more the future of some of these channels. If you ask me, is they're going to buoy their revenue by working with a Pennzoil or a Mobile One or those types of things, which really hasn't permeated widely through the YouTube channels yet. I mean, it happens, but nothing like you would see on Motor Trend TV or magazines or any of those types of things. I think it's going to be interesting. But I say this, man, they're running their business. They know their business better than I do or you do. And if the financiers are there, they're going to spend it on cars. I mean, that's the coolest part of it for all of us. I mean, at least they're buying the shit we'd all want to buy.
True, true. Well, the perfect way to wrap up is with a question. Let me go real quick to our Instagram. Again, everybody, go follow the Instagram. It's at Clutch Culture Pod. Just before we hopped on, I did do, and I'm gonna start doing this weekly. Put a little questions, for the listeners or people that follow the Instagram page to ask us, and we'll ask them here on the podcast when we get to the end of it. We got one here from, and this I didn't give people a lot of time, so we've got 2 questions today. For Rob and Nick, what's your favorite car you've ever owned? And that's from Supreme Clientele. Oops, sorry, the name is cut off. Go ahead, Nick. Answer the question, and I'll get the.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
What's your favorite car that you've ever owned?
E39 M5.
Does you still have it?
No, I have an E90
Oh, yeah.
M3.
M3. Okay.
Yeah, so E39 M5 was my favorite car to own, partly because I paid hardly anything for it. Guy was trying to dump it. He was in some financial. I made a lot of money on that car. I mean, a lot of
Nice.
money, but I also love driving that car. I don't have it's not very hard for me to let go of cars. Even making a lot of money on that car, that was a tough car for me to let go.
That was from Supreme Clientele Auto Care. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even making a joke. I had an '02 4.0 Ford Ranger that I put 400,000 miles on. I mean, to get silly in the rain and whip out the back, just kind of enjoy it. I used it as a work truck for a long time. It was a really enjoyable car. If I could find another one, I'd buy one tomorrow. To tell you the truth.
Hey, it's funny. You have all these things, and like if I could go back and buy my first Jeep Wrangler, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
it's almost like nostalgia, right? Like
Yes.
I just would want to have it. You'd get in it just like you would with yours, and you'd be like, man, I this was a lot more fun back then because that's what happens to all of us. But you'd still be like, man, I really like this thing.
Yeah, and other than that, I've lived through all the four-cylinder turbo bangers because I love those cars. My Neon S54 was great. The Focus ST was great. This GTI is awesome. So that's kind of where I live, and I'll probably end up picking up another one because that's just the kind of guy I am. Very practical, a little bit of sporty. Talk shit about buying a C8. Never really going to buy a C8, but you never know.
Yeah.
Nick's take on underbody rust prevention, effectiveness, preferred brands, upkeep. You grew up somewhere where you'd have to kind of think about that, right?
Yeah, so you know, you have these companies, Fluid Film, Wool Wax, or whatever it's called. I think that's good for people that are just going to stay up with it. You know, do it yearly or whatever you need to do with with the amount of salt you have. But the newest technology that I would do, that we're talking about doing on this LX 470, is to completely dry ice the bottom or laser clean the bottom of the vehicle and then do an industrial ceramic coating on everything, including the inside of the panels of the car or the SUV or whatever. That
Mm,
stuff is far and away way ahead of the, you know, wool waxes and fluid films. But if you don't have the money to do or the expertise to do it yourself or the machinery to do what I'm talking about, yeah, man, I mean, I think most of that stuff is all pretty similar, right? I mean, fluid film, wool wax, those kind of things. Go with a reputable brand. I don't have one that I'm like, hey, this one's better than this one. I'm sure other people do. But we are actually light years beyond that technology now. It's just a matter of if you want to inherit the cost of what it takes to do it the modern way. And that's basically the laser cleaning, the ice, the dry ice, and then doing an actual industrial ceramic coating to the whole bottom. I mean, this stuff's insane. This stuff lasts every bit of 10 years, especially if you keep your car clean. Like it's insanity. So
fast
that would
forward
be my preferred way.
Fast forward of winter 2025. Nick's gonna just manufacture the solution and then just start promoting it on the podcast. Shout out
Yeah, I mean
Joey Veg. Love
we're
Jonah.
there now. I mean, we have the capability now. So we're doing that for a lot of people at this point.
That's awesome. Well, sir, that's the podcast for today. Unless you want to give somebody an update on the LX, actually, I was going to ask you, do I have any idea? Because I know you're going to be out of town, you got things coming up. When you can expect to maybe start dropping some changes to it?
So I have a meeting down in Scottsdale when I'm at Barrett Jackson next week.
Mhm.
So you and I'm going to have to take my mic with me, and I'm going to be doing this from a different locale next week. So I'll be at Barrett Jackson. I've already attended a few days at Barrett Jackson by the time we talk. I have a meeting with a stereo company, an actual speaker manufacturer, when I'm down there to talk about this project. Uh, I'm not probably going to dive into this project until February. You know,
Okay.
really like start talking about. But there's no doubt I gotta. You know, I'm gonna be talking about some like leather restoration stuff because it's kind of got that crispy, been lived in, not cared for. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, sort of the basics and what I hope to share with this project. I'm not going to really be doing a bunch of stuff you guys can't do
Hmm.
because I think that's not as fun, right? So even if I do the undercarriage, I'll show that. But right now, I mean, I got under there early this week. I mean, it's pretty well coated with an undercoating type product. So dry ice and stuff may come, you know, a year from now or whatever, and it doesn't look like it's probably worth it right this second. Because first of all, now it's in Vegas, so
Mm.
rust isn't an issue out here for us. But there's a lot of things that I want to show that every single one of us can do, and just kind of share what I would do if I bought one of these vehicles. If I was at home, I wanted to do it in my garage. Now I happen to have lifts and stuff here, so I'm going to try to do things that you don't need that kind of stuff. The basics of just returning this to its former glory are not as hard as everybody makes it out to be. It just takes some elbow grease and somebody walking you through it a little bit.
Fantastic. Well, if you guys want to email the show, questions, comments, stories, what have you, clutchculturepodcast@gmail.com. Until we have a website and anything else, that's where you can reach out via email. And we'll see you guys next week.
So you guys